in Florida, the state can kidnap your children now if they feel there is a threat that they might be exposed to trans affirming care, which is a totally arbitrary standard legally. It basically means the courts have free reign to take a kid if they think you're like progressive or queer associated. It's gotten really bad over there. I mean, we're seeing that this is, I mean, I know this is like the easiest comparison in the universe to go to, right? But it's like, this is like the fascist consolidation, where when you don't have any ideas on how to govern the country or lead people, you use social issues to distract them from your pro-corporate agenda. And like, the more that rolls out of control, the more it becomes for the social issues for its own sake. I genuinely feel like 20 years ago, Republicans would talk about being anti-gay and pro, like, or like revoking Roe v. Wade or making abortion illegal as a way to get Christian evangelicals on the side of tax cuts for businesses. But I don't think that's the case anymore. Right now, I think the reactionary politics are the goal in and of themselves. The pro-business stuff is just a way to keep the donors happy. And this, I mean, on the long run with no opposition, this always leads to genocide. So I just, I hope it doesn't work out.
Well, like some of these laws that have come up, like I don't know if this is entirely true, but there was one law that I saw where apparently you can deny healthcare, like a nurse or like a doctor can deny like emergency care to somebody if they're like trans or something,
Based
or
on their sincerely held religious beliefs. So historically, that's always been like court speak for Christians don't have to do this for gay people.
yeah.
Or but yeah, no, they passed that. Yeah, they can just like an EMT
How is that?
can
How
see
is that
you.
legal? Like, how can a doctor even agree to that medically? Like, that goes against any oath that they take. Like, I had the same discussion with my dad. He's like whatever your political beliefs is, like if you're a doctor, my dad who is a doctor, he's like, you gotta fucking take care of somebody if they're dying in front of you. What the fuck?
Well, a lot of this stuff is unconstitutional, and it would be
Yeah.
challenged in a higher court, but it's currently a GOP-led higher court, so they're deliberately not there's the only way to get rid of this would be to challenge its constitutionality, and that can't really be done without like a sane higher court to defer to. So in the meantime, like literally right now, every week, dozens of unconstitutional laws are being passed in Republican states because they know that there's not actually a way to legally challenge them.
It's such a fucking shame that like these people have like these fucking like civil rights era like because I was watching like Hassan stream and he showed like this state of emergency from like the NAACP about people who are like transgender, like to not, or like in the LGBTQ sphere, to just not go to Florida or like not go to certain states because it's just a danger zone for them. And I'm like, man, there's just like I just don't understand how situations have gotten that bad. Like it didn't feel like this was the same case. I want to say like 10 years ago, like when I was a teenager.
Florida was a purple state a decade ago. Things moved pretty quickly over there.
Well, like I think of when I was a teenager, right? Like back in 2010, 2011, and I'm like, I'm sure there was the same level of hatred for gays back in the day, if more so, if anything. But I don't know, as somebody that grew up watching, like the Young Turks on YouTube because they were like the first fucking channel that showed up in recommendations. I thought we kind of had already moved past this. I thought we moved past this in like 2013, 2014 even. And
Yep.
now it's just like a full regression back to
I mean, it
fucking
is, right? I mean, same with the Weimar Republic was like one of the epicenters of progressive politics back in the 1920s, and it's just, it's you see the reactionary blowback, right? And I think, yeah, I don't know, like sometimes this fails, right? Like we saw this with civil rights too, because after slavery was gotten rid of, the Ku Klux Klan came about and the Jim Crow laws, and you had this like cyclical backlash where things actually got worse in some spaces for a while because it went from like slave systems to like sundown towns, Ku Klux Klan lynchings, and so on. And eventually they did lose, but there's almost always that blowback. And I think the best way to handle it is just, I guess you always have to accept, like on principle, that no matter how good things may seem, as long as the logic for them to get worse still exists, it can. And right now it is. And I agree with Hassan. I told, like, if you're queer in Florida, like, you should just move out of the state, no matter the cost, no matter what it takes. Like, now is the time to leave.
I mean, it's better than having your rights be eroded away and choosing to continue to do that. But I mean, obviously, moving is a fucking severely economical issue for a lot of people.
It sucks. It's not fair at all. But it's like shit. Like that's the state, right? I mean, I've been saying like keep your passports updated. If you're in a place where you're not going to be moving soon, if you want to buy guns, hey, there's never been a better time. Just like high level shit like that. But it's horrible that even seems on the table, right? With how things are going right now, Florida, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas.
Yeah, Texas is pretty bad too. Me and my wife are like, because I'm moving down to the States, so like we just have a few options. It's like we're looking at like Huntington Beach, California. Like that's a fucking beautiful place. We can afford it, but like that's, exception from the norm. I was also looking at Dallas because I was out there. I have some family and everything, but then like, Dallas, right? Like fuck, you're moving out to like, central US and I don't know.
The
Like
city,
it's
the
a
city
tough
of
place to be
Dallas
in.
is progressive. There's
City of Dallas is nice. South Dallas is great. Like we had an Airbnb down in like I want to say the gay district or something,
yeah.
because the guy who we were Airbnbing from was like an architect, super fucking like you could just tell, right? Like this guy was definitely not like standard Texan politics, but
It's like that in
being
Florida too.
Texas and Texas.
Miami and Orlando are both pretty damn gay. At the very least, they're certainly not like Bible thumping Republican. It's that contrast between like highly politically active rural areas where all the red, people are, and then like in the blue areas, especially in Florida, because Florida has a very weak Democratic Party. That's why they used
Well,
to
it's
be
like where
popular, now they're
anytime you
not.
have like people who are like college educated, university educated, like working in high professional fields, like look at where they tend to, fucking just look at their politics at that point, right?
It's one of the
Like,
reasons I'm more optimistic about how things are going right now. In the Weimar Republic, actually, university professors tended to side with the Nazis. It seems weird, but like the highly educated in the Weimar Republic were usually of the upper like economic crust, and they had a greater investment in what they perceived to be like a reassertion of German power and national pride. Whereas nowadays, of course, professors are all gay and all the students are gay and everyone with a bachelor's or higher is gay. So it's flipped a little bit.
yeah, it's just it's so like the thing about it is like looking at the situation of the states. It's like one of the questions I've been asking myself in like the last few weeks. It's like because I've heard like the trans genocide and all. Like I've heard the word genocide probably more than I've ever heard just in 2023, and it kind of feels like this is to put it in a very depressing tone. It's like maybe this is like the start of what like a Nazi Germany kind of looks like, right? Like fucking it starts slow and then like people tend to agree more and more and more. It's a fucked up situation. And I'm kind of like trying to see what parallels exist between like the 40s and like the age we live in nowadays.
For me,
You find one group of people to demonize like this, and then it goes from there, right?
yeah, that's generally how it starts, right? For me, the most direct through line with regards to trans people specifically is there's this tired like, oh, they're grooming the kids thing. This goes back decades. This went back to gays in the 80s, even before that. But like right now, the line's pretty clear. It's like, for example, Ron DeSantis in Florida recently signed into law stuff that would make it easier to give the death penalty to pedophiles, child abusers, sex offenders, if I recall correctly. Now, okay, like on its own, sure. But then you look at Twitter and it's like they're calling all trans people pedophiles and sex offenders for like being near children. Some states have already passed laws saying that any act of gender non-congruence, like say a man, biological male, wearing female clothing is something comparable to doing a burlesque show or stripping. So
And that's just like social transitioning, like from
yeah,
from what
like
I'm hearing.
anything. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
what's the through line here? Well, they're basically saying that being trans is being a groomer, and that being a groomer should be met with the death penalty. QED, right? Like we see the line they're drawing, and they're just building the legal platform to get it through, I think.